All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for sticking around for those of you in the room for the last interview of the main stage. Bart, it's a pleasure to be with you on stage. As the CTO of Proton, you're heading quite a big team here in Paris, and you have quite a valuable experience to share on stage. Obviously, the theme of the day is AI, artificial intelligence. When people think about AI, they don't necessarily think about privacy, security, and respecting user data. But when people think about Proton, they think about privacy, security. Most people probably know you for Proton Mail, Proton VPN, Proton Drive. What's actually your offering when it comes to AI at Proton?
So thank you, Ramon, and thanks, Scaleway. Thanks for having me. I mean, it's the same thing we offer with all our products, which is privacy, right? I mean, the fact that it's an LLM, the fact that it's AI doesn't, if anything, makes it more dangerous than other products in terms of the privacy risks, right? And at Proton, we use LLMs and AI for our own purposes as well. They definitely have, very compelling use cases, right? But the fact that they're powerful is also what makes them dangerous, right? And I think you're, as you said in the question, you're quite right that people don't think about what they're giving up. You know, people tell chatbots their most intimate secrets because they view them as not real people, right? They view them as somebody who won't judge them, so they'll tell their deepest, darkest secrets. And what they don't really understand is that their chat transcripts are totally visible to the people actually running the chatbots, right? And this can be weaponized or mined or used to really, to create an even more detailed profile of who they are, how they're thinking, and what they're doing. And that's essentially, I mean, our product, Lumo, our chatbot is, we think is a powerful LLM, a powerful AI in its own right, and useful as a general purpose chatbot. However, its main value add compared to competitors is simply that that those chats are private. Those chats, we can't use them, and nobody else can either, right? They are stored encrypted, and that is it's a compelling addition to our product range as a result.
At Anthropic, at some point, they were saying we don't train on user data, and then they had to switch a flip, and essentially for Claude, and they said from now on you gotta opt out if you don't want to share your data with us, so that we can train our next model down the road. So they asked everyone, there was a pop-up saying, all right, from now on, we're going to train on user data to make the product better, to improve the product, unless you click on decline. With Lumo, do you think you're giving up on some features because you don't train on user data, and it's not going to be necessarily as powerful as the leading, bleeding edge LLMs of the world?
So first of all, for Lumo, we don't train our own LLMs. And I think one distinction between us and somebody else's is and Anthropic and ChatGPT and Microsoft and Google and all the other ones is that they have billions of dollars to set on fire, and we don't, right? So we don't train our own models. We use models, and we use a mix of models depending on which ones are better for different tasks.
Can you share some of the models you're using?
I mean, there's a Mistral model, there's a DeepSeek model, there's other things. I think there's actually one of the OpenAI
open source
model.
one.
Yes, exactly. They're on our website. They change fairly often because this is a space which is
there's a new release every week.
Very, very fast, right? So I refer you to the website for whatever is the case today, right? But we use a bunch of models, so we don't train that. I think I think the answer is no in general, because in the future, I mean, we would like to. I think personalization is a big part of AI usefulness, right? And I think you can do that via context without actually training the models. I think training the models, one thing that was interesting about the Anthropic thing, we want to train on your data, was that, I mean, I'm sure they see value in it, but at the same time, that's super dangerous. We know for a fact that once you put into a model, what you put into a model can be extracted, right?
Or at least that's what the New York Times is trying to find out right now
I mean,
in their suit against OpenAI.
Sure, and I mean, we've all seen the Marvel movies generated via Sora and stuff like that. And like, okay, obviously the training data is coming right back out of here. So, the fact that you're training on such personal information, I mean, should be a red flag for most people, right? But I don't think we're going to give up what we can do on personalization via not training on user data. I think that can largely be compensated for with context in general.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you just said. You said these companies, they're burning billions of dollars and putting money on fire every month, and you have a very different approach. I remember when we chatted before the interview, you said you're not in the VC game, basically. How do you think Proton's strategy so far is influencing your product strategy when it comes to launching AI product? Do you think it's important to only launch sustainable products that you're going to be able to offer over the long run?
I think yes and no. I mean, we have an ecosystem, right? We as you said, we have Mail, we have Calendar, we have VPN, we have Drive, we have on top of Drive, we have Photos, we have Docs, we have Spreadsheets as of today, actually. So if you're a Proton user, you may.
Congrats on the launch.
Yeah. If you don't see it today, you'll see it Monday. It's a gradual rollout, but you might see it today. Let's put it that way. But we have Spreadsheets, and we have a Bitcoin wallet. We have other things coming, and the point is an ecosystem. So I'm not going to say that every product has to live and die on its own, because we're one company and there's such a thing as lost leaders and other things. But at the moment, that's what we try. At the moment, we try for every product to sort of have its own P&L that makes sense, and that's what we do for. We're not in the business of building totally unsustainable businesses that are largely funded by VC money. We don't have any venture capitalists. We've been around for 10 years. We had a very little amount of seed money, which was a lot of it came from the community early on, and then as of 2016, we thought, maybe we should let people pay us, so we did. And since then, we've been in the black, and we try to keep that. And our method has been to build sustainable products that don't monetize our users, right? It's sort of funny that in no space other than the internet is the idea that, hey, I'm going to sell things to customers who pay us for them is somehow revolutionary. But the internet is different. The internet,
And we're going to spend a bit less than the money that we make.
Right, exactly. And the internet's different, though. The internet, the advertising model of the internet, which in some ways is the original sin of the internet, has made it very, very different, where, you are the product, your data is what is used to pay for it, right? And our philosophy has always been that our users are our customers, not the advertisers, and that has influenced everything we do.
Do you see a philosophy change for the past? Have you noticed that for the past 3 years? Because as you said, people got used to free products. When Google launched Gmail, people were like, "Oh my God, I got 1 gig of email storage for free." They launched Spreadsheets, Docs, Drives, all these kind of products. But when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, pretty quickly after that, they launched paid subscriptions. And maybe it got people back into the habit of paying for products. And do you see a shift at Proton into people being willing to pay for tech products more today than before ChatGPT?
I don't know. I don't know if ChatGPT made a difference. I think we've always had a pretty healthy fraction of our users. I mean, we have a very large free tier, right? And we do that because it's the right thing to do. We also do that because it's good business. So it gets getting people in the door, trying the product, and also, of course, for our paid users, the larger the network, the larger their network is using Proton, the more valuable the product is to them, right? So there are all kinds of very compelling business reasons to have a freemium tier. But yeah, I mean, I think we've been.
And you don't see a percentage change from the free versus paid users?
I don't have those numbers memorized. I don't recall seeing some sort of, I mean, we do a lot of stuff to try to optimize that as well, right? We do a lot of work to try to strike the right balance by making the free product very usable and very usable for people who can't afford to or don't find the value compelling enough to pay, but also to try to make the paid tiers compelling enough for people to convert and become paid users, because that's how we pay the bills and build more stuff, right? So we do a lot of that already. So it's hard to disentangle. People are used to paying for streaming services too. Those have never been free, and I don't think that really changed anything. So I do think that, sure, early on when we started saying, Proton Mail was the first product, when he said, okay, we're going to build an encrypted email service and we're going to charge money for it, and we're going to compete with Gmail with it, I think people thought we were crazy. And well, it worked, and so do all the other products. So, but yeah, I don't know if there's a sea change in attitude. I think it would be probably more beneficial if more people were, comfortable paying for services that they value, as opposed to just getting data mined for it. But of course, I'm biased.
How would you describe Proton? Is it a European company, a Swiss company?
I think at this point, I mean, both. But at this point, we're very much a European company, where we support we're big supporters of the Eurostack initiative. I think this is something that, I mean, to be brutally honest, Europe's got some problems in this regard. If you want VC money, we don't, but $10 billion can buy a lot of stuff, right? And that's Tuesday in Palo Alto, right? It's not in Europe. You can get a grant maybe for several million, and it's going to take you 6 months, and then you're going to have a bunch of reporting requirements and other things. But when it comes to procurement, the European Commission will still buy Microsoft, right? So it's tricky. But Europe has several things going for it as well. It has the best privacy framework on the planet, and when it comes to regulated industries or defense or healthcare or any of these number of these other things, whether it's AI or something else, they're going to look for the European provider who protects their data, as opposed to the one that has a both for digital sovereignty reasons and also from a standpoint of just what can be accessed by whom, right? I had a joke that used to be a lot more funny than it is today, but the joke was that Google and Facebook have built the most comprehensive surveillance network in the history of humanity, and they do the most American thing ever with it, which is to sell you shit you don't need. But we're getting a front row seat to the risk of what happens, of what the existence of those networks, how that threatens free society. It's not just that, okay, they might be used for relatively banal purposes. The risk of their existence is real, and I think Europe is at the forefront of defending free society in that regard, with GDPR and other things. But there's a lot more that Europe as a political entity could do to encourage sort of the continental tech stack, and we have a long way to go.
So you're American, you're based here in Paris. How do you feel about rooting for Europe and saying all these things about American companies?
I mean, I am an American. I love America, especially the idea of America. I feel very patriotic in the sense of what it's, I think it's very special that my country is one of the few countries that to be an American is an affirmative choice, generally speaking, by people. And in some ways, I think France is very similar to that. I feel very at home in France in some ways. I make a joke that compares Americans and French, and both sides of this joke hate it, which makes it even funnier in my opinion. But that said, you know, I think the world is better if if Europe and America are partners in defending free society, rather than one being in charge and one being the junior partner, which has been the case for the last, you know, now we're getting into geopolitics, but that's been the case in the last, you know, since the Second World War. And I think that, you know, a better outcome will be, you know, the EU is the sleeping superpower, right? I mean, it should take its rightful place as a defender of free society, and it hasn't. And if, you know, recent developments are not great in a lot of ways, but if it pushes Europe to actually be that partner that America so desperately needs, at least America in its more idealistic form, let's say, then I think that can be a good thing. So I care more about free society. I care deeply about America. I also care about free society in general, and I think it's a very scary time for that.
All right, let's talk even more about geopolitics then.
Okay.
Do you think Proton's mission is even more important today, with privacy being at the center of everything, than it was 10 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's you know, on the one hand, I was about to say everything going to shit, but on the one hand, things going poorly is not great. On the other hand, it's great for business because it sort of proves our point in the sense that it's very important that we design systems and structures to, by default. I mean, there's a reason our slogan is privacy by default, right? It's very important that we design systems and structures by default which protect the rights and privileges that we enjoy. Because if we don't, you get the wrong person in the wrong job, and things go downhill very, very quickly. And I think we're getting an object lesson in that. It would be nice, of course, if we could learn that lesson without actually making the mistake. But you know, here we are. So
you have very strong ideas. Now Proton is 600 people in the black, more than 600 people, I think.
Yeah.
It's a for-profit company. Other companies are trying to push forward when it comes to privacy, or organizations, I should say, other organizations, and thinking about Signal, thinking about Mozilla as well. The fact that you chose to be a for-profit company, do you think it's an advantage to compare to being a foundation, a non-profit, or something like that?
I do, and I want to, you know, I have great respect for both Mozilla and Signal. We have good relationships with them. We are partners with them in many ways. We are certainly in advocacy for the kind of policies, changes and decisions that we want. We're very aligned, and that said, I think we're different, and you know, whether it's bad or good or better is I think subjective, but I do think that part of what makes Proton special is that being a profitable enterprise is part of the mission. Like, part of the mission is not just build private products for activists, et cetera. There's nothing wrong with that. Activists need tools too. But the reason our slogan is privacy by default is the aspiration, and it's very ambitious. We've never been anything but ambitious. But the reason it's to build an internet where privacy is the default. And doing something, changing the default of the internet requires scale. And the only way to get to scale, it's not as a niche privacy tool. It's not as a foundation, you know, that has a large part of its budget paid for by Google search revenues, right? It's making money at the scale where people have to pay attention to you, right? So this is one of the things I've always loved about Proton, is that, you know, the mission is not only privacy, the mission is also to do it as a profitable business, such that we can prove that, you know what, it is possible to make money and protect your users at the same time.
Okay, we only have a few seconds left, but the goal is very ambitious. You've set the bar very high. You want to compete with Google, with Microsoft on email, calendar, Drive, all these things. You want to compete with OpenAI and Anthropic for Lumo. You want to compete with all the VPN companies in the world with Proton VPN. What does success look like for Proton in 5 years?
5 years. I think success. I mean, I think that for me and for the other senior leadership, if in, I don't know about the 5-year timeline, but if we can't get to the big B billion users, that will not be a success for us. I think that's the scale that you have to get to really play in this game, and before we don't want to be too delusional. It's going to take a lot of work to get there, right? And we have a long way to go. But that's the goal.
Okay, Bart, thank you so much for the interview. It was a great conversation.